Welcome to everyone who joined right at 11:30 Central or 12:30 Eastern. My name is Louis Butler. I'm the National C&I Sales Manager at Nelnet Renewable Energy, formerly GRE Solar. If you have any questions, maybe you're watching a recording of this and you're not sure how to get a hold of me, louis.butler@nelnet.net is the best email for me. And we'll go ahead and get things kicked off talking about Illinois Shines, formerly known and kind of still known as the Adjustable Block Program. Talking a little bit about the program today if you're not familiar, but then digging in a little bit into the draft of the long-term renewable resource procurement plan to kind of talk about the impacts and maybe some decision making for customers going forward here over the course of the next 6+ months. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Emma is helping out today, and she can kind of flag some of these for me as well. So with that out of the way, just real quick, I'm not offering financial advice, tax advice. I'm just offering my advice as someone who's in the industry, and I also sit on the Illinois Solar Energy Association board. So kind of digging through these policies is a little bit of a favorite pastime of mine. So what we're going to be covering today is the Illinois Shines Incentive Program, just at a really high level. We're going to touch on what that is. I think most people on the call are very familiar with the program, but we will spend 2 minutes touching on that at a high level. Also worth noting that Illinois Shines is, the branding's always kind of been there, but the program is also referred to as the Adjustable Block Program. In the new long-term renewable resource procurement plan, the IPA, or the Illinois Power Agency, is kind of shifting to calling it the Illinois Shines Program. So I'm trying to shift my nomenclature that way. So we're going to talk about what that program is. We're going to talk about the draft version of the long-term plan, and then what advice do I have or we have for customers or businesses who are currently looking at a project, and what impacts might be coming down the road for them here over the next several months. So just at a high level, what is the Illinois Shines Incentive Program? Some legislation passed or has passed over the last number of years, the Future Energy Jobs Act, the Clean Energy Jobs Act, that are pushing Illinois down the path of having more and more renewables be on the grid. And so the goals that are set out in legislation are 40% renewables by 2030, 50% by 2040, and then potentially 100% by 2050 there. So if we think about what the Illinois Power Agency is trying to do in this long-term procurement plan, is they're laying out the path of how the state and all of its stakeholders are going to achieve these targets. And there's a wide variety of mechanisms. If you go and you read the long-term plan, I think there's 8 or 9 chapters in it. Some of it's a history of incentive programs in Illinois in the past. Some of them deal with wind. Some of them are specific to the Illinois Shines program. And then there's other programs like Illinois Solar for All, which we participate pretty heavily in. And there's guidance outlined in that as well. So just, really quick, how does the program work? The part that we're focused on today is in Chapter 7, the Illinois Shines program. Basically what that program does is for a variety of market segments, so residential, community solar, large C&I, it lays out what those incentive programs look like, and then in exchange for agreeing to produce renewable energy over the next 15 or 20 years, depending on which program it is, the utilities will basically enter into a contract with you and pay you for those renewable energy certificates that you're going to generate. And so in exchange for handing those off to the utility company, they will pay you for those, what we would refer to as RECs. So, in that residential space or small DG, those REC payments are concentrated usually in one lump sum payment soon after energization, and the program administrator approves those payments, which has been a little bit of a sticking point in the past. In the large DG, or what I think of as the commercial industrial bucket, still a 15-year REC contract, but those payments are paid out over a 6 to 7 year time frame over about 25 quarters. And then as you start to get into the other programs like the public schools, sub-program, those RECs are paid out over a 20-year time span for 20-year REC production. So in terms of who can apply, we've kind of covered the spectrum there. And as I'll remind everyone later, we're going to do one of these webinars talking specifically about that small DG section with our residential sales manager, Connor Allen, I think about a week from today. But almost anyone can apply. It's just a matter of which program you want to qualify for and which REC bucket you're trying to get into. In terms of how hard is it to apply, this is a little of a sales presentation. We would like to think we make it relatively pain-free by taking you through our process and working as an approved vendor inside of the Illinois Shines program. So if you have questions about the slide or anything that I've said, please put those questions in the comment or the Q&A. We'll try to answer them today. You can reach out to me before or after the webinar, or not before the webinar, during or after the webinar. And then also feel free to give us a call and go to the website. So now what I think most people on the call have come for, this is kind of the boring but important policy considerations. The IPA on August 15th released their 2024 long-term renewable resources procurement plan for public comment. And basically, I think it's every other year, what the IPA does is they lay out their plan for procuring RECs and pushing the state of Illinois down this green energy and renewable future path. So things to always keep in mind right now, this is a draft plan. The IPA will highlight many times that it is a draft plan. If you've ever gone through this process before, you know that there can be important changes and non-trivial changes from the initial draft plan that is put out to what ultimately gets approved by the Illinois Commerce Commission or the ICC. So please take all of this with a small grain of salt. We're focusing on Chapter 7 specifically today. We're talking about proposed REC values. There's certainly a lot of other information inside of Chapter 7 that we'll touch on a little bit of here in a little bit. And then the other thing we want to make sure everyone's aware of is how you secure the REC values, and that's going to come up here in the next slide or two. So if you want, I think it's on one of these slides, but if you're curious as to how to find it, if you just Google 2024 Long-Term Renewable Resource Procurement Plan Draft, there'll probably be a notice from the IPA that you'll be able to go to and get to that plan. So in terms of process, the plan is currently in draft. It's currently out for public comment. So the industry, various companies, other stakeholders have until September 29th to submit comments to the IPA or the Illinois Power Agency. The IPA then has 14 days to take into consideration all the comments and feedback that they've gotten, then ultimately submit their plan to the Illinois Commerce Commission, and they need to be doing that by the end of October there. Then what happens, and there's a few things I've left off the slide here, eventually the Illinois Commerce Commission has to approve or needs to approve a plan. So it's only once we get to this point that the long-term plan has been officially approved by the Illinois Commerce Commission are those REC values really locked in. And so they're not even probably going to start that confirmation process until, basically March of 2024. So that's why we're really keen in on these current REC prices that they've published. In my opinion, and again, this is just an opinion, the IPA is very aware that the industry is reading through this document. So I think they do a reasonable job at, or a good job at setting expectations here. So I just want to highlight the REC pricing we're going to be talking about today can certainly change during this time between now and when it's finalized. But for our customers, the important thing to know here is that in order to lock in any REC pricing, you have to have an approved interconnection from your utility company. Depending on the size and scope of the project and what utility company we're talking about, especially in some of these larger projects, you could be looking at 3 to 6+ months to file and get an approved interconnection. And it's only once you have that you're able to go in and secure REC values for that program year. So if we kind of back out of it, that program year is going to start June 1st of 2024 with new REC values. So we have the draft version of those rec values today. So if you're thinking if it's going to take me 6 months to get an approved interconnection, if you kind of sign a contract and get started in February of next year, you're probably not going to be able to get into this program year at the current rec values. And I think the next slide is going to kind of highlight why the clock is starting to tick in that regard. And hopefully everyone can read this slide well. If not, it's on numbered page 188 of the draft plan. It's on 198 of like the PDF document. But what we're seeing is that the IPA is recommending pretty much across the board here decreases to all of the rec values going into the next program year. And so depending on the size of the project, it's going to vary a little bit, but it's going from say 3+% and small DG decrease to, in some cases, you're looking at over a 20 to 24% decrease, depending on which block or category you're in there. So if you're able to make a decision, say between now and the end of the year, you can kind of lock in those current rec values. If not, we should be rerunning the numbers to see what the impact of what these projects is going to be on these rec values going forward. Now, looked at a bunch of the cash flows and financials on these projects. I still think that these rec values are very favorable towards project economics. It's just if you're able to make a decision a little bit quicker, you can scoop up a little bit of extra money. So it's really critical from where we sit on the project execution side that we get these interconnections moving sooner rather than later. You might be saying, well, Lewis, hey, I see all these little green text areas down below. Not every single rec category decreased. The publics, and I've left some out here because of the sake of space. If you're a public school and you're looking at doing a project, previously you were probably leaning towards submitting your project to the large DG categories. With those values going down, if you're representing a school, it might be more advantageous to submit to the school block now because there's more of a delta between those two programs. And there is a little bit of a difference in how quickly those are paid out in those rec contracts, which if someone wants to ask a question, I'm happy to answer right now. So the main concern here, or thing that we would like to highlight to everybody, it's not really a concern. It's the draft plan currently has rec values decreasing, a measurable amount in a number of categories. So, who is this going to impact the most? Currently, if you are an Ameren customer, or what we would consider in Group A, which is going to be up here, what's happened is a lot of the program, the Illinois Shrines program, opened up a new capacity tranche or bucket of funding in June, and before we even, it was meant to last an entire year. So before we even got to the end of the summer, basically, all that capacity has been spoken for, and now there's a wait list that's starting to form. So if you're an Ameren customer, you're basically only looking at those future draft values now because this program year has already been allocated. But we haven't reached that point for ComEd customers yet, or Group B. So if you're an Ameren customer, it's still advantageous to get your interconnection paperwork filed so that you're on the wait list, so that you're one of the first people to come off the wait list if the IPA approves more funding. And if you're a ComEd customer, my sense is that there's going to be a fair number of people who are looking around these rec decreases, filing interconnections very soon. And so whatever funding is left in that category, I think is going to start going down. And I don't think that effect's going to be immediate, but I would imagine 3 to 6 months from now, once that program year gets closer to ending, you're going to see a lot of that funding starting to get eaten up, and it remains to be seen if there'll be a wait list there or not. So as you look at this table, green means there's capacity. So I think I'm highlighting the public schools funding right now. The public schools current funding is very available. But as you start to look at some of these other categories like large DG or traditional community solar, you can see that they're already over capacity. So that's my pretty simple recommendation is if you're thinking about a project, get that interconnection filed. We have a variety of ways of getting that process started, even if you're not sure if you want to fully commit 100% to a project yet. And our team is more than happy to speak with you about those things. And again, plug in my man, Connor Allen, who leads up our residential team here at Nelnet Renewable Energy. He's going to be on in about a week from now and talking about the remaining capacity in a few of these small DG buckets, and what he's also seeing out there in the market as well, and why it might be advantageous to act a little bit sooner rather than later. So to me, it feels like I blew through a lot in the last 15 minutes there, but happy to kind of take some questions. The